Hello and welcome. Have you ever tried to really wrap your head around artificial intelligence only to end up more confused than when you started? Yeah, me too. Well, today we're doing something a little different. We're going to ditch the technical manuals and pick up a whisk instead. We are going to break down the core concepts of AI by following the playbook for baking an absolutely luxurious chocolate cake. All right, let's get into it.
So, where did this idea come from? Well, an AI architect decided to make the abstract, delicious. He created this thing called the Makati Midnight Playbook, which is a brilliant framework that uses the precise, careful steps of baking a world-class cake to explain exactly how an AI model gets built. It's a story, it's a perfect analogy, and it's going to be our guide today. Right. This is the big question, isn't it? How on earth can something so delicious teach us about something as complex as algorithms and neural networks? Well, as we're about to find out, the logic, the precision, and the goals behind a perfect cake and a powerful AI, they're actually surprisingly similar. So let's start right at the beginning. Every great project, I don't care if it's a cake or a piece of software, it doesn't start with an action. It starts with a really clear vision. Before you even think about cracking an egg or writing a line of code, you have to know exactly what you're trying to create. You've got to define that perfect outcome. So in our playbook, the goal isn't just bake a cake. That's way too simple. The goal is to create a specific vibe. Makati Midnight. Just picture it. Pure luxury, intensely rich dark chocolate, maybe even a little hint of gold leaf. It's all about sophistication. Now, in the world of AI, this has a direct parallel. It's called defining the objective function. That's the very specific goal the AI is programmed to achieve. The best way to think about the objective function is as the AI's North Star. It's the one thing that guides every single decision it makes. For our cake, that North Star is maximizing guest delight. For a language model, it might be something like maximizing accuracy when it answers your questions. It's that specific, measurable target. And listen, this is absolutely crucial. If your objective is vague, something like just make a cake, you're going to get a generic, forgettable result every single time. But a really sharp objective, like creating that Makati Midnight vibe, forces you to optimize every single choice you make. It also means you have to define your constraints. For the cake, that's the high humidity in the city, a tight Christmas deadline, and the ingredients you can actually get. For an AI, it's things like computing power and the data you have available. Okay, so our objective is set. Now, what are we going to build this thing with? See, it doesn't matter if you're making a cake or an AI. The quality of your final product is 100% dependent on the quality of your raw materials. It is time to source the building blocks. The playbook is super specific here. It doesn't say, go get some cocoa powder. No way. A runner is sent out for premium, very specific brands, local Aro chocolate and L and Vire butter. This isn't just a shopping trip. In AI terms, this is data sourcing and cleaning. It's the process of actively hunting down the best, most relevant information and, just as importantly, throwing out all the junk. And this whole process of sourcing and cleaning, it has a name: data curation. You can think of it as the art of filtering out all the noise and selecting only the absolute highest quality data points. Just like our baker is curating the perfect pantry, an AI architect has to curate the perfect data set. This brings us to probably the most fundamental principle in all of AI: garbage in, garbage out. It's so simple, but so true. If you use generic, low-quality cocoa powder, which is our version of noisy, messy data, it doesn't matter how brilliant your recipe is, the final cake, your AI model, is going to be a failure. Quality inputs are just non-negotiable. Okay, so we've got our goal, and we've got our premium ingredients. Now we need the instructions. And let's be clear. The recipe isn't just a list of friendly suggestions. It's a precise, structured algorithm. It is the blueprint for success. The recipe details the exact structure, right? A layer of cake, then a layer of ganache, and you repeat. That right there, that's the model architecture. Then it gives you these super precise weights, like exactly 250 grams of flour. Those exact measurements, those are the hyperparameters, the really critical settings that define how the entire model is going to work. The easiest way to think of hyperparameters is as the dials on the model that you, the architect, have to set perfectly from the very beginning. That 250 grams of flour is a hypoparameter. The oven temperature, 175 degrees Celsius, that's another one. And what's really important to remember is that these are not things the model learns on its own.
They're the settings you have to give it before it even starts.
This breaks it down perfectly. The oven that bakes the cake, that's just like the GPU, providing all the compute power. And that oven temperature is everything. If it's too hot, the cake burns. In AI, we call this overfitting. The model basically just memorizes the data you gave it, but it can't handle anything new. And if it's too cool, the cake won't rise. That's underfitting. The model just completely fails to learn the pattern. You've got to get it just right. So we have the plan, we have the parts, now it's time to execute. And look, building a cake isn't just one single action. It's a multi-stage process. It's a carefully orchestrated pipeline that takes you all the way from raw ingredients to a beautiful finished product. In the tech industry, this whole thing is part of what's called MLOps, or machine learning operations. It's basically the entire workflow. It starts with the bake, which is like pre-training. This is where you create the foundational sponge cake, a really powerful but still generic base model. Next, you assemble it, layering on that rich ganache. This is fine-tuning, where you adapt that general model for your very specific goal. And finally, you temper the cake, letting it rest and come together. That's optimization. That final tempering step is actually a perfect analogy for a key setting in large language models called the temperature parameter. Just look at the chart. If the temperature is too low, the cake is cold and rigid. The AI's output is super boring and predictable. If the temperature is way too high, the cake just melts into a puddle. The AI hallucinates, just making up nonsense. The goal is that sweet spot, that optimal temperature right in the middle where the output is both creative and useful.
All right, the cake is baked, it's assembled, and it is tempered to perfection. It's sitting on the platter, it looks magnificent. And now comes the most important part of this entire process. This is the moment of truth.
In our playbook, this is the moment the host slices the cake and a guest takes their very first bite. That single moment, it's everything. All the work leads up to this. In AI, this is called deployment and inference. You've deployed the model into production, you've put the cake on the table, and now the user is about to make a query. To put it simply, inference is just the AI doing its job. It's that instant when it takes a new input, the guest's query or the act of tasting the cake, and it generates an output, the answer, or that incredible flavor. This is the moment where all those previous steps finally pay off. And there are a few final touches that really matter here. Deployment is just the act of getting the model to the user, bringing the cake to the table. Latency is how long that guest has to wait for their slice. If it's too long, the whole experience is ruined, right? But my favorite part is this last one. When the host tells the story of the special Oreo chocolate and the family recipe, that's explainable AI. It's about opening up that black box to build trust and help the user appreciate the result even more. So let's just do a quick recap of the Makati Midnight Playbook. The concept, that's your objective function. You have to define the goal clearly. Sourcing the ingredients, that's your data curation. Remember, quality in, quality out. The recipe is your architecture. Structure and precision are everything. Assembly is fine-tuning, adapting your general model to your specific need. And finally, serving the cake is inference, the moment of truth where the user gets to see the value. You know, when you think of AI as a recipe, it really demystifies the whole thing. It's not magic. It's a series of very deliberate choices about goals, ingredients, structure, and process. It transforms something that can seem impossibly complex into a set of steps that you can actually understand and maybe even direct. So that really just leaves us with one final thought. If AI is a recipe, what amazing thing are you going to bake next?